Thank you guys for coming to our first ever Zoom meeting that I'm aware of in the history of Altadena that is addressing Altadena and wildlife. So thank you guys for attending today. My name is Dorothy Wong, and I am council member here in Altadena, representing Census Tract 460301. I will tag popcorn over to Hannah Petrie.
Hey, I too am newly representing 460301 along with Dorothy, and just thrilled to be part of the team and excited that this is our first meeting of my tenure.
And Hannah's gonna popcorn over too.
Who am I popcorning over to?
Nick, I got it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nick Arnson. I'm council member for 4602, right up against the mountain here. So I'm excited to see what we've got tonight. I have no idea who I'm popcorning to, but popcorn sounds really good right now.
He just showed up.
I would suggest Billy Malone should go next.
Hi, Billy Malone, here with the town council. Good evening, everyone. I'm on the current executive committee for the town council and current chair. So welcome, everybody. Happy to be here. Next up.
Sorry, I was on another page. Okay, so we're gonna go over the agenda again. Sorry, I'm getting all these beeps on my phone. Today's agenda is going to be full of great information from our great guests today. And so we're going to be doing a presentation and Q&A format for this. And so we're going to be doing our presentations, the first three. Your questions will be via chat. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box. And then we didn't introduce Aaron. So Aaron will be, and he'll be talking to us when he's managing the chat questions. Aaron is our lovely, you want to talk about yourself for a moment?
Oh, nothing special. I'll just be monitoring the questions and letting the presenters know at the end of their presentations who has questions as they go, and just here to help.
Awesome. Can you guys still hear me? Okay, thank you. So our agenda is then rules. So everyone stays muted. And again, you can ask questions in the chat. And as we go through each of our presentations, we will actually ask some of those questions. We'll also be then going to the end where we will open up into a raised hand where you can ask your own questions. And then we plan to finish this meeting at 7 o'clock. And if we are having such a great time, hopefully our guests will be able to stay for 10 minutes or so, just to kind of answer more questions. And again, this is the first of many meetings that we can hope to have in our community, as we love our wildlife so much here in Altadena, and we want to really coexist with them in a way that is sustainable for everybody. So I will now introduce my very first guest, and she is an amazing woman, and through her great collaboration and conversations that we had with her, Erin also spoke with her. Erin, you could have probably introduced her. But anyway, we want to welcome Rebecca Barbosa. She is the wildlife biologist for the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, South Coast Region. And she is going to be giving us a great presentation now on the Wildlife Watch program. And we're going to be learn some great, how to be great stewards for bears, and perhaps some of the Keep Me Wild campaign. Go, Rebecca.
Okay, thank you, Dorothy, so much. And thank you to you for helping to facilitate this discussion, because without you, this meeting wouldn't have been put together. So I'm really appreciative of you and the Altadena Town Council for hosting this. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, can everybody see that? All right, so I'm Rebecca Barboza with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. I'm a wildlife biologist. My area is primarily LA County. I'm also the regional human wildlife conflict coordinator, and that region is everything from San Diego to Santa Barbara. So let's just go ahead and get started with our bears in California. In California, we have one species of bear, that's the American black bear. And they historically, they were in Northern California primarily. Now they currently inhabit all of the mountainous regions of the state. And in the 1920s, the California grizzly was extirpated. After that happened, the black bear began a gradual expansion southward. And the more areas of more recent expansion are in the dark red color. And by recent, I mean the last 30 to 40 years, where in some cases we haven't seen bears in these areas at all until now. So bears are 5 to 6 feet long. They weigh up to 600 pounds. Now that's a maximum. The average is 150 to 300 pounds. And they can live in the wild 25 to 30 years, which is pretty extensive for a large-bodied mammal to be living that long, let alone in the wild for that length of time. So there tends to be some confusion about bears in California because we see different coat colors. We see the black coat color. We see a lot of that in Northern California. In Southern California, we tend to see a brown or cinnamon coat. And there's even a blonde phase, which is fairly rare, but it is out there. And these are all black bears. They just have different coat colors. Breeding begins in mid-June, and black bears have something called delayed implantation, where the fertilized eggs don't immediately implant into the wound. They kind of float around for a few months, and that enables the bear to both breed and give birth at optimal periods of time during the season. It's a physiological adaptation to body condition, where if the female sow has insufficient fat reserves, she will spontaneously abort one or more of the fertilized eggs. If she has sufficient fat reserves, she can give birth to 2 to 5 cubs. And it's important to note that human food sources can facilitate local population increases. If you think about it, in the wild, a female bear may give birth to 2 cubs, and those cubs may survive to adulthood. However, in the urban environment, we see multiple births quite regularly, and those cubs do survive to adulthood. So we start to see this exponential kind of growth period in the urban area. The sow, the female bear, will give birth to an underdeveloped fetus midwinter, and the fetus will continue to develop in the den. The cub will emerge with the sow in the spring. They're weaned by midsummer, and the cubs stay with the sow, until they're 18 to 20 months old. And during that time, she'll be teaching them social and foraging behavior, but they can be independent as early as 6 months of age. A baby bear weighs less than a pound, and they're fully grown within 5 years. So if you think about that, from less than a pound to 150 to 300 pounds within 5 years, that's a tremendous amount of growth. And it takes a lot of food to fuel that growth and to maintain that body condition for up to 30 years. So you can begin to see why the urban environment is more appealing to our black bears than the natural environment. Speaking of their food habits, black bears are omnivores, meaning they eat everything. They have a generally vegetarian diet, but they commonly consume animal proteins, and their diet varies seasonally and with availability. Most of the reliance on human food is in late summer and fall. And I do make a distinction between wild versus food conditioned or urban bears. And of course, they're all wild, but when I mention a wild bear, I'm talking about their feeding habits. And some of our urban bears do still feed on natural foods like termites, bee larvae, any kind of insect larvae. They like berries. Manzanita berries are particularly important in the summertime because they're a late season berry. Acorns are very important to bears in the late fall. We refer to fruits produced by trees as mast, and acorns are mast. And when the mast production is high, even in the urban areas, you can see evidence in the droppings. So one of the questions that I have is that I wonder if human-bear conflicts decrease during years where we have high mass production, and likewise if the conflicts increase during years with low mass production. Some of the silly things I think about. So adult bears are generally solitary. Their home range size varies depending on sex, age, population density, and food availability. It's believed that bears have a home range of about 3 to 11 square miles in the national forest. And they have smaller home ranges in the urban interface only because there's so many of them. There's food readily available, so they don't have to travel very far. So probably about a mile to a mile and a half in the urban interface. And bears have been known to make movements of 100 miles or more, particularly when they are relocated. So this is just a visual of the home range. There's a male black bear here with a large home range. He's got a couple of female adult bears in there with smaller home ranges. The females have given birth, and the female cubs will stay within that natal range, and the juvenile males will disperse outside of their natal range. And it's generally those juvenile males that we see dispersing out into the new areas that are causing the conflicts in the urban areas. Not always. I mean, we have females with cubs and other age groups, but for statewide, what we see is primarily trouble caused by those juvenile males. Black bears have adapted to a variety of vegetation types, including conifers, hardwoods, brush, and meadows. This is a typical canyon in the Angeles National Forest where we see lots of bears. And it's interesting to me because in Northern California, black bears are arboreal. They spend most of their life in trees. And they've really adapted to this scrub habitat, which is pretty amazing. They've also adapted quite well, as you well know, to the urban interface. Bears begin a period of fattening in the fall when they're getting ready for winter, and they start eating even more than they normally do. They will generally, and this is statewide, they will generally den in December. Southern California is unique because we have mild or non-existent winters with abundant food sources. So our bears go through a seasonal torpor, which is not a true hibernation. Most bears will retreat away from the residential areas. They'll reduce their activities. They'll sleep more. They'll den up late in the season, or perhaps not at all. As a matter of fact, we believe that only those sows that are giving birth den for the entire winter season. And while they're denned up, they can be disturbed and they can get up and move around. We've seen a steady increase in the bear population statewide over the past 30 to 35 years. We believe that the population has nearly tripled. And these are conservative estimates because it's based on hunted individuals, and not all populations of bears are hunted. In the 1990s, there were some estimates that there were about 400 to 500 adult bears in the Angeles National Forest. And that was a 5% rate of increase since the 1970s. And we believe that trend is continuing. So another reason why we see a lot of bears in the urban areas, because they're running out of space in the National Forest. So when does the Department of Fish and Wildlife become involved in bear incidents? Well, the department is the steward agency for wildlife in California. We take reports for sightings, property damage, and other incidents, either remotely by phone or email, or on scene whenever necessary. We are the lead agency for public safety incidents, and we're mandated to maintain healthy bear populations. And the goal of our statewide bear policy is to provide the public with tools to minimize conflicts, at the same time avoid population impacts. Now I'll spend a few next couple slides on our depredation policy. Depredation is a term that we use when a wild animal has damaged private property. Category 1 is a no harm, no foul bear. This animal has wandered in fresh from the forest. It's naive to humans. It's there for food, not for confrontation. And it's generally these juvenile males that are dispersing out of their natal range. A lot of times they're just at the wrong place at the wrong time, and they want to move back into the forest just as badly as you want them to leave. And given space and time, they will leave on their own, or they can be hazed or moved to the nearest available habitat. Category 2 is one that we see most frequently in the urban environment. This is a habituated or nuisance bear. There's been no property damage, but the bear does a lot of tipping over of garbage cans, peeking into windows, just being present more frequently. At this stage in the game, we generally recommend corrective measures such as bear-resistant garbage cans, removing attractants, fencing or electrical fencing if appropriate, and hazing or scaring the animal away when necessary. Category 3 is where property damage has occurred. At this point in the game, a lot of times bears are no longer able to be hazed. They just don't respond to it. A lot of times there are still corrective measures that we can make to the property owner. And at this point in the game, the property owner can request a permit to kill the bear from the department. It's important to understand, though, that in most of our foothill communities, there are strict firearms ordinances. So that's a consideration that makes the depredation permits kind of unobtainable in the urban environment. So proper management of attractants early on can prevent this situation, and that's our goal. We don't want a bear to enter your home. We don't want a bear to damage your property. We certainly don't want to issue a depredation permit for a bear unnecessarily. So we want to work on those category 1 and category 2 bears before it gets to this point. In LA County between 2006 and 2018, there were 11 depredation permits issued and 7 bears were taken. That same time period in Northern California, for instance, El Dorado County, there were almost 400 permits issued and 105 bears were taken. So Northern California is still the epicenter to most of the statewide bear conflicts. I know that probably doesn't make you feel much better because, you know, your bear conflicts are important to your community. But I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of where most of the bear conflicts are happening. So one of the most common recommendations that we can make is bear-resistant garbage cans. And if someone can't have a bear-resistant garbage can, to properly store it so that the bear doesn't have access to it. And cleaning and disinfecting the garbage cans every week is very important. Predator-resistant chicken coops are very important as well. Surprisingly, a lot of people keep chickens and livestock in our foothill communities. And I've found that while a lot of people have the overnight roost, some people don't enclose the run as well. And we know that chickens and small livestock need that daily exercise, but the bear is going to realize that during the day, he's got this easy meal that he can come to. So we recommend that the runs be enclosed as well. So why don't we just tranquilize the bear and move it away? That's the most common question that we get. One of the concerns that we have is our immobilization policy during hunting season. The drugs that we receive for immobilizing wildlife are administered under our veterinarian's license. And there are federal regulations that require that no controlled substances are to enter into the food chain. Certain drugs that we use remain in the animal system for up to 14 days. And there is a very, very small chance that if we put a tranquilized bear or a bear out there that had been tranquilized, a hunter could take the bear, ingest the meat, and become affected by the drug. And if that were to happen, our veterinarian would lose their license and we would lose chemical immobilization statewide as a very important tool. So because of that, we don't chemically immobilize wildlife 14 days prior to, during, and after 14 days after hunting season. And this is the most active period for bears. This is the fall season when they're fattening up. That's when the bear hunting season is. This policy does not apply to public safety incidents or injured or sick bears because they're not placed back into the food chain. We also have some inherent limitations of our equipment. Our dart rifles are very sophisticated pieces of equipment, but they don't necessarily shoot like a rifle does. For one thing, the charges that we use are the same charges that you can get in the Home Depot store that you use for your nail guns, and they're notorious for being inconsistent. The darts themselves are just hollow tubes hollow metal tubes filled with liquid, and they can misfire. I've had that happen to me several times. So we always carry a second or third backup dart, but sometimes a misfire is a missed opportunity because the animal will run away. Also, the notion that as soon as the dart goes into the animal, they're down is completely incorrect. In perfect conditions, drug induction time is 2 to 5 minutes before we even see the animals start to go under. Large fat deposits and stress hormones, other factors can increase the induction time. And bears will run after they are darted. They can run up to 25 miles per hour, which means they can travel 1 to 2 miles before that drug even starts taking effect. So that's a consideration that we have to make when we're talking about a crowded urban area. We don't want an angry bear with a dart sticking out of its shoulder running around where people are going to be present. I also wanted to hit on our relocation policy. Basically, when you see us on the news in hand with a bear, that means that that animal, for the most part, that animal has gotten itself into a situation that it can't get out of without our help. And when we do get into that, there are other situations too, like pre-COVID times, if there was a bear at an elementary school, say, and there were children present, of course we would move that bear. But that's not a relocation, that's moving it or returning it to habitat. And generally we take that animal less than 1 mile from the incident site. So it's not intended to resolve human-wildlife conflict. It's just a means to an end to get that animal out of that particular situation. There are certain circumstances where we can move an animal outside of its home range. That requires approval from Sacramento. The people on the ground can't make that decision. And basically, you know, there's a lot of reasons why relocation doesn't work, but primarily because those animals, once they're relocated, they suddenly don't know where their resources are, and they're going to make a beeline right back to their old home range. And remember, I said bears can travel 100 miles or more, so they're pretty determined to get back to their home range. So it really doesn't work. It's not effective, and it doesn't fix the heart of the problem, which is the food and the attractants that brought the animals into the neighborhoods in the first place. Wanted to talk a little bit about public safety threats and how the animals' behaviors guide our decisions. An imminent threat means that there is a likelihood of human injury based on the totality of the circumstances. So if we hear about a bear attacking a man and we show up and we see something like this, we're not necessarily going to start shooting an animal right away because we need to look at the whole circumstance. In this case, it was a zoo setting, and the bear was a captive bred animal that knew its trainer since birth, and it was just horsing around with the trainer. So that was just my lame attempt to kind of visualize for you the fact that we don't just show up and start shooting at a bear if we hear that it's aggressive. We need to make sure that we verify that that animal is actually an imminent threat to the public safety. Law enforcement determines public safety incidents. So that would be a department wildlife officer, the local sheriff or police department, park ranger, or Forest Service enforcement, or any other law enforcement entity. It's important to remember that the mere presence of wildlife does not necessarily pose an imminent threat to public safety. Remember, an imminent threat means that someone will be injured, and the only way to prevent that from happening is to immediately kill the animal. Generally, most wildlife with space and time, they'll leave on their own. or they can be hazed without a mass response from agencies. And we're kind of lucky in California because none of our predatory species are inherently aggressive towards humans. So if you think about like an African lion or a polar bear, those animals are inherently aggressive towards humans, and their mere presence is an imminent threat. With black bears, our mountain lions, our coyotes, our bobcats, they're not inherently aggressive towards humans. And if they were, we would absolutely know about it and our policies would be completely different. An informed public is the most effective solution to most problems related to bears. Number one recommendation, never feed bears, either intentionally, no matter how cute they are, or unintentionally by leaving garbage and attractants available to bears. Food conditioned bears that have caused property damage and or killed pets or livestock can be killed under the state's depredation policy and state laws. Again, you know, we don't want a bear to die unnecessarily. We don't want your property to be damaged unnecessarily. So it's important that the whole community do their part to prevent human-bear conflicts. And by the way, feeding of wildlife is prohibited by state law, Los Angeles County Code, and some cities' municipal codes prohibit the feeding of wildlife. A couple of human-bear conflict prevention tips: install or request bear-resistant garbage cans, freeze wet garbage like meat or bones until pickup day, keep garbage inside a garage or secure building until pickup, and disinfect garbage containers weekly with bleach or ammonia. Clean those barbecue grills regularly, keep pet food and water indoors, harvest your tree fruits, particularly avocados, regularly and pick up fallen fruits. Remember, bears and other wild animals are attracted to anything edible and smelly, and it's against the law to feed bears. Finally, I wanted to cover what to do when you encounter a bear. If you're in close proximity, which you really shouldn't be, but if you find yourself in close proximity to a bear, you want to back off slowly. You want to talk in a low, quiet voice. And as soon as you back off, that animal is going to back off as well. And believe me, this works. Personal experience several times doing this with a bear. And for the most part, they're not interested in attacking humans. They just want you out of their space. If you're in an open space, if there's more room between you and the animal, go ahead and look at the bear, make yourself look bigger. If you have a coat on or a sweater on, spread it out like a cape, make loud noises, throw objects at the animal. You want to try and scare that animal away from your property. You never want to turn and run because that could set off a chase instinct. And in the very unlikely event that you're attacked, you want to fight back. You do not play dead. That's an old wives' tale. Finally, I did want to touch on our Wildlife Watch program. It's a program that was established in LA and Orange counties primarily for coyote problems. And we felt that it would actually work well with bears and other wildlife as well. Wildlife Watch encourages cities and other agencies to prepare comprehensive wildlife management plans, which include public education efforts that will change human behavior. Wildlife Watch establishes a comprehensive integrative management strategy that will minimize human-wildlife conflicts and improve the quality of life in urban settings. It's based on conservation and ecological principles, agency and community leadership coaching, and respect for wildlife and for one another. And I'm really happy to say that I've been in discussion with Altadena regarding the Wildlife Watch program. I don't want to talk too much about the program tonight because we're still talking about the program, but we want to develop interest in it. And again, it's worked with coyotes. It will work with bears, we believe. There was a study in Durango, Colorado, that basically, long story short, when they handed out bear-resistant garbage cans and they started monitoring the properties to make sure that the attractants were removed, et cetera, basically they bear-proofed the town. 60% reduction in the amount of bear to trash conflict. So that was a 60% reduction in conflict, which was very remarkable. And we've seen similar success with coyote programs. So that's Wildlife Watch. If you want more information about Wildlife Watch or any other information about wildlife in our foothill communities, please visit our webpage at wildlife.ca.gov. And now I can slow down, and I think we're going to save questions till later, I believe.
Unless, thank you, Rebecca. Unless, Aaron, was there one question we should ask from the chat?
There was one question. Max O would like to know, what phone number should Altadenans call to request a CDFW biologist to be dispatched when they identify a stage 1 bear who needs to be hazed back into the Angeles National Forest?
Okay, well, the best number to contact the department would probably be our South Coast Regional number, and I can put that in the chat for you all.
Thank you very much. And we will, yes, be asking questions at the end. So thanks again, Rebecca. I feel when you said we're not going to talk about Wildlife Watch now in this meeting, I know we're having a meeting in January via the ACONA meeting, which I think is the 3rd week. I always get mixed up if it's Tuesday or Wednesday, but sometime in January, ACONA will also be addressing wildlife. So
yes, I think it's the 26th or the 27th.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. And now we're going to get a quick commercial break for LA County Public Works about these infamous trash cans. Steve Maluski.
Thank you. Just bear with me while I get my presentation going. Sharing my screen.
Bear with you.
And there it is. Has that come up for you yet? Oh, share. I always forget to hit the share button. I think I'd learned by now. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let's start it up. All right. So my name is Steve Molesky, and I work for LA County Public Works. I did see some comments in the chats, in the chat box there, that I'm not an Athens representative. I work for LA County Public Works. And then we've had an agreement with Athens Services to provide trash to your area. So I oversee all the residential trash collection system for the unincorporated communities. And as you know, Altadena is tucked against the San Gabriel Mountains. And unlike the historical photo on your screen right now, many homes have been built in what was former habitat for these animals. And so this has caused the Altadena residents to become what I'm calling bear buffets. And so that's what we're going to talk about and how we can prevent some of this. And so we have the Altadena Bear Cart Program, and it's designed to protect both bears and people. And the quantity of the bear-resistant carts was specified back in the contract from 2011. And the number of carts that we specified back then, we've exhausted it. There are no more, there were no more free carts. So anyone who had called Athens Services over the last few months was probably told, I'm sorry, either you can't have one or there might be a fee if they were willing to give you one. And so that wasn't Athens' fault at the time. It's just our contract. We underestimated the number of bear carts that we would need. And so since that time, we have negotiated with Athens Services. And if you call, over the last few weeks, if you would have called them, they should have offered to give you one for free. The county's going to provide, cover the service for that. It's possible, because this is relatively new, that the person that you talked to on the phone wasn't familiar with the change in the policy. So just push to make sure you get yours. And I'm going to have my phone number at the end, and you can always call me or email me, and then I can contact Athens on your behalf if they're giving you any problem. So what is the future for the bear program? And it's the mandatory bear zones is where we're heading. And so this would be, we're going to work with biologists to determine where we should draw the line, who's in a bear zone, who's not in a bear zone. But any home that's then determined to be within the bear zone would be required to use the bear resistant carts. It might be also in the future that you're going to need not just one bear cart, but we might need to have them for both the recycling and the green waste as well, depending on the bear problem. And the future designs, the carts that were distributed previously are kind of the older style, and the new carts have a new design, and there's a picture of them there. I've drawn a circle around the little latch that the bears supposedly can't get in. Okay, and now how do we know that the bears can't get in? Well, there's the Interagency Grizzly Bear Committee in Montana that tests these carts. They place food in the containers, and according to their testing program, if the product is not breached within the required 60 minutes of bear contact time, it will have considered to pass the live bear test. And so there's your professional tester in the picture. Doesn't seem very scientific, but it does work very well. And so these cans aren't considered bear proof, they're bear resistant, because given a bear long enough, he's gonna get anything. So that is pretty much it. There's my telephone number, my email. One of the gentlemen that worked for me, Ryan, he is the contract administrator for your community. You can also contact him. Down in the lower right corner, you see Athens Services telephone number. You can call them. That's 888-336-6100. They should give you a free bear cart. They had 50 in stock earlier. If everybody on this, I see there's 50 something, close to 50 people on this meeting today. So if everybody calls tomorrow, the last couple of people may not get a bear cart, but it takes roughly a month or two to order new carts for Athens because it's not the most popular item for the manufacturer. So it does take a little bit of time to get new ones. So if the stock starts to run low, they'll order more. I threw some other numbers on there. You've got our illegal dumping reporting because I know there's certain locations, especially I know on Sacramento, we're always getting calls in Altadena or near the cemetery by what used to be Thrifty, where they Rite Aid now behind there. There's a hot zone for illegal dumping. If you want to report illegal dumping to us, there's some contact information for you. And if you have any general trash questions, you can go ahead and contact us as well. So that is my presentation. I'll answer questions at the end, I guess.
Yes, thank you very much, Steve, for that information. And again, on the town council website, and as we start evolving all of this information, the presentations will be available, right, everybody? And we'll also have some amazing links from our guests. So let's roll right along to our finale guest here, representing the Cougar. Oh, can you hear me?
Dot, I have one question.
Okay, one question, go.
Will the bear cans be available in the small size as well as the big size? Are there different sizes?
Steve's muted.
Yeah. I was looking for my unmute button. Currently, they're only available in the larger size. As I had mentioned, there's typically not a big demand for these carts, so the manufacturer is limited in what they're willing to produce. Can't order 5 of them. They're typically, I think 50 to 100 is like the minimum number. And if we're able to generate a long enough list of people that want the smaller ones, we could probably get them made.
Okay.
But we can't just order 3. So currently you have to deal with the large one only.
I think that addresses the last question, which is they have a community of about 271 homes, and I'm assuming this might be the Meadows area. A lot of bear activity. Could Athens provide cans for the entire community?
In theory, but I know they don't have 271 of them in stock. I'm assuming that all 271 people are essentially justified in needing them because they're up in the area.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the Lavinia area. However, if there were every resident in Lavinia or the Meadows, for example, would they be able to support all the residents in those areas?
Yeah, our goal would be to be able to supply them all, but they're just not in stock today to do that. So we'd have to prioritize the people that needed them first, but then we would attempt to distribute it to everyone.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Sure.
Just one quick one, bear-proof composting. That's a very popular thing here. Do you have bear-proof composters?
Ooh. Not that I'm aware of, but that's something we could look into.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's roll into our next guest because we're running low on time here. Representing, she is actually the founder and director of the amazing Cougar Conservancy. Karina Domingo is our guest, and she's a wildlife biologist from Los Angeles as well. Has done amazing things to start up the Cougar Conservancy, and I'm sure she's going to tell us about it right now as she addresses wildfire and coexistence. Go, Karina.
Thank you, Dot. Yeah, thank you for inviting me today. I'm looking forward to speaking with all of you at the end of this program. So we're just going to jump right into it, and I'm going to tell you about the Cougar Conservancy, our programs. We're also going to touch briefly on wildfires, and of course, I'm going to share some tips for coexisting with cougars. So the Cougar Conservancy is a nonprofit organization based out of Los Angeles, California, that provides recommendations and direct support to state residents that are seeking to prevent or resolve conflicts that may arise between our communities and cougars in the landscapes that we share. So our conflict task force collaborates with communities and individuals to implement reliable cougar conflict prevention techniques that serve people while conserving cougars. And so our mission is to reduce human-wildlife conflict and conserve cougar populations through science-based management and conservation. Part of our work is connecting residents to information. So we receive inquiries, requesting assistance with wildlife identification, for example. But most frequently asked questions we get from the public revolve around the biology and behavior of cougars, as well as practical solutions for at home and on the trail in order to keep your loved ones safe. So we love connecting with the community. Feel free to reach out to us anytime with any questions. Residents can also call our conflict hotline, where they can report a sighting, an incident, or request assistance. We encourage residents to reach out to us regarding our various assistance programs. So one of our services is conflict prevention visits. During these visits, our team provides advice on the available conflict prevention measures, as well as the efficacy of such tools based on the property and specific geographic area. Community members are given site-specific recommendations for reducing conflict in their backyard or neighborhood. We also conduct post-conflict visits, or visits that happen after an alleged incident with a cougar has occurred. So we heard a little bit about depredation earlier, or also, just general harassment of domestic animals. So our team does the same assessment as a conflict prevention visit, plus a little bit more. We also assist individuals with safeguarding pets and domestic animals. We give recommendations on, how to retrofit existing structures on a property. In addition, for those who qualify, we can also assist in building cougar-proof enclosures through our pen building assistance program. Removing attractants on property is also crucial in preventing negative interactions with cougars and other wildlife. In the state of California, there are 6 methods for illegal carcass disposal, which vary by county and city. And so when there are financial barriers for the proper disposal of depredated animals, we can assist community members with proper remains disposal. And you can also just consult with us for information on the carcass disposal legalities in your area as well. And when there are a lot of reports coming in from one area, that's usually when we're invited by a member of the community to come and give a talk such as this one. So if there's a need in your community for a presentation, please let us know. This could be a public presentation or a talk for your local HOA or neighborhood, as well as a small get together on Zoom for like a Q&A session. If there are issues arising, another thing that we can do is canvassing. So going out to a neighborhood and knocking on doors and answering questions, and providing people with brochures and information. So our conflict task force, something that we did recently is we worked on a case regarding a cougar in the Monrovia area. Some of you may have seen some of this on the news, but we responded to a resident who contacted us regarding a cougar that was likely injured from the nearby Bobcat Fire, and he sent us these photos. And upon arriving, we requested to do a walkthrough of the property, and we verified that there was a cougar on site, and then coordinated with CDFW. CDFW arrived shortly after, and we located the cat and worked as a team to capture the lion. And when we had the lion in hand, we determined that it was a female and all 4 paws were badly burned and bleeding, but she was taken in for treatment. And the cougar received a suite of burn treatments from veterinarians at CDFW with UC Davis as well. She responded positively to treatment and was determined to be a candidate for release. She was released deep into a gorgeous area of the San Gabriel Mountains. This was really a conservation success story, so you can follow the hashtag to learn more. But with the increase in human-caused wildfires, we anticipate a lot more of these cases in the future. So I've been asked to speak directly to the behavioral and ecological responses of cougars to fire disturbances. And what I'll say is that there really is a need for more scientific information on this topic. Studies that document responses of cougars to fire are uncommon, and there's several reasons why. It's very difficult to obtain some of the information. For example, even in high densities, predators are rare when compared to their prey. Most predators are elusive, and long-term data is needed for validity of studies. And home ranges of predators like cougars are so large that residence is not usually defined to a single burned area. And so our understanding would definitely benefit from things like modeling the influence of fire on cougar habitat selection, home range reestablishment, feeding site selection, and how that selection changes throughout time. So more research is also needed to understand the factors that lead to human-wildlife conflict after an event as well. And gaining this information would be beneficial to the public and agencies. In a recent release, Panthera estimated that 300 to 600 of California's mountain lions have been killed or injured or negatively impacted by wildfires so far this year alone. And it's been historically thought that large animals like cougars could just make their way out of a wildfire, but that idea is changing now. So much of the work done at the Cougar Conservancy occurs on this wildland-urban interface that we heard Rebecca talk about earlier. Because this type of development generally takes up more acreage than, say, an urban or suburban home, it's more likely to also include vulnerable livestock. And speaking just spatially, looking at this picture, also intrudes into cougar habitat. It's the place where the most conflicts and perceived conflicts with cougars occur. It's also the locale most susceptible to wildfire, creating even greater risk for cougars and people inhabiting these areas. So a little bit about the San Gabriel, San Bernardino cougar population. The status of your guys' cougars, they are a candidate species right now under the California Endangered Species Act. The San Gabriel Mountains has also been identified by scientists as a critical linkage area for statewide genetic connectivity, as you can see where you guys are right there. And protecting cougars in this area is especially important for the long-term persistence of Southern California and Central Coast lions. So fire has been a natural part of Southern California's natural history. Historically, wildfires in this region served as a natural disturbance pulse that had beneficial effects for many species through a reset of successional states in a system, resulting in increased heterogeneity or variation in the landscape. So we can all think back to middle school, to that graph that we all saw of secondary succession after a fire, right? But we're dealing with fire in the Anthropocene. So California has been experiencing record fire seasons with the 5 of the top 20 largest fires occurring this year in 2020. We know that human-caused wildfires are increasing, and the increase in fire frequency can be attributed to a few anthropogenic factors, but namely the spatial distribution and density of development on the landscape, right? That wild and urban interface, the increases in human-caused ignitions, and of course, climate change. And so the Bobcat Fire burned about 115,000 acres in the San Gabriels. Since then, since there's really no long-term study of cougars in this specific area, we can look just a few miles west to get some answers as to how wildfire may impact cougar populations in the Southern California area in general. And so we all know the Santa Monica Mountains. Since 2002, cougars have been studied extensively in this area. So information on diet, habitat selection, home ranges, and mortality has been analyzed primarily through the data collected from collars, GPS collars. This long-term research offers insights on how pumas eat and live and reproduce in these especially urbanized environments. And so the WOOLSEY fire burned about half of the Santa Monica Mountains and 2/3 of the Simi Hills cougar habitat, and 2 mortalities of collared lions were reported. It was P74 and P64. And so National Park Service has since found that mountain lions have moved out of the burn areas. And since mountain lions regulate their own population as a function of resource availability, then there may be increased intraspecific strife or conflict between lions where they now share space, especially if resources are limited post-fire. And so human-wildlife conflict and perceived risks. Cougars and their sign may be more noticeable immediately following a burn, which could result in increases in reporting. This doesn't mean, however, that there are any more lions in an area. This perceived threat from residents may result in increased reporting to both Cougar Conservancy and CDFW. With the advent of technology like inexpensive trail cameras and $99 ring cameras, detections on trail cameras and security cameras have also allowed residents to see wildlife they wouldn't have observed before. And on top of all of that, this recent wave of reports from the Altadena area specifically is coming as we enter the second wave of safer at home orders, where people are home more often and are seeing wildlife. So this is a picture of me in my kitchen in April birding when the trails were closed. So fire events can result in loss of optimal habitat, which could result in an increase in human-wildlife interactions. Directly following a fire event, really and always, if you have pets or livestock, this is really a critical time to ensure their safety. Different types of structures are also given certain priority levels when a fire is sweeping through an area. So protective enclosures like barns are often lost during a fire event as firefighters prioritize other structures like houses and businesses. And so it's important to ensure adequate predator-proof housing for pets and livestock that will be utilized, especially from dusk until dawn. And so if your cougar-proof enclosure burned during the Bobcat Fire, please reach out to us and let's see if there are ways that we can help you safeguard your animals. The left-hand picture that you see here is a chicken coop that we fortified to be lion-proof. And on the right-hand side, you see a custom catio that Maribel Lopez made. So tips for home, landscaping practices that prevent conflict. One tip is to trim vegetation above the ground. Communities in Southern California have successfully reduced conflicts with predators by trimming hedges about 2 to 3 feet off the ground. And landscaping in this way can help reduce the areas where cougars and other wildlife can take refuge. You want to keep hedges away from your house. This helps you in a few different ways. One, by reducing the amount of cover cougars can use to hide and rest. That makes perfect sense. But also by deterring cougar prey species from making your backyard their home. And 3, by, of course, maintaining the recommended 100 feet of defensible space around your home for wildfire readiness. You also want to reduce backyard clutter. So open areas without places to hide are naturally risky for wildlife. So decluttering can serve as a deterrent for cougars and their prey. You want to secure trash and compost piles. We heard this earlier as well. And so I won't get too much into it, but pet food and water should also not be left outside unattended. It really represents an easy meal to many wildlife species. So consider feeding wildlife and pets while indoors. And if you store pet food outside, just make sure it's inaccessible to wildlife. I just want to hit this home. Do not feed wildlife. After a wildfire, the best thing for wildlife is to pass through and move on to natural habitat with minimum human interaction. So feeding wildlife like deer and small mammals can provide a false sense of available resources and can result in them sticking around, which can attract predators to your property. So mountain lions, bears, bobcats, coyotes, they're going to be stressed and in search for food until they and their prey can return home to their natural areas. And last but not least, reduce deer activity around your property by deer-proofing your yard. So repellent landscaping or fencing can also encourage deer to move on. And if you happen to find injured or burned wildlife, there's a new hotline that you can call, the Wildlife Disaster Network. The number is right here. And what they'll do is they'll also they'll get you in touch with a local rehab center that's near you that is capable of intaking burned patients. And of course, you can always reach out to the Cougar Conservancy if it involves a cougar. And with that, like to thank you. And I think we're going to do questions at the very end, but I will stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you, Karina. Aaron, do we have one chat question that for Karina? Otherwise, we're going to go into our sort of our community conversation. Raise your hand so you can ask your question to any of our guests. Aaron, what do you think?
We have one question. It is in reference to the current over 5,000 deer tags issued in Zone D11. Do you work with the Fish and Wildlife on issued tags?
Is that a question for me, Aaron?
Yes, it is. Sorry.
No, I think the department could speak more to that.
Yeah, those tags there, you have to keep in mind that's D11, D13, and D15. So that's 3 zones that take up those tags. And suffice it to say, there's not that much hunting in D11. It's mostly in D13 where we see these tags used.
Okay, one more really important question that is making the chat is, what is it that we can do about our current problem with the cougar in the area?
You want me to take that, Rebecca? Or?
Yeah, I'm the current problem. Well, what specifically is the problem? I want to get an idea
Sure.
of what the community is feeling the problem is.
I'll just try and sum it up for everyone. Over the last couple of weeks, we've had a cougar that has come down and taken several dogs, several sheep, and even an alpaca. And the concern is what is it that we can do to address that issue?
Well, I think a lot of the things that we've talked about this evening will help. Certainly, and the department wasn't notified, so that we didn't investigate these incidents. And if we had, we would have been able to instruct the landowner, the property owner on how to properly in-house their animals. Thing to keep in mind is that these animals have a huge home range. The average home range is 100 square miles, and they're constantly circulating around their home range so that they don't deplete their prey. So what you may think is, you heard about an animal, a mountain lion last week, and you're hearing more information about a mountain lion. Well, they can stay in an area for about a week while they consume a carcass, and then they'll move on. So I think that people, again, protecting their pets, protecting their livestock, that's going to go a long ways towards reducing the mountain lion conflicts. Because again, mountain lions, they're not here to attack people. They're just looking for an easy meal. And it's a lot easier to go after that goat or that, chicken or whatever you have in your yard than it is to go after that deer, which is their primary prey.
And another thing that you can do is, again, please reach out to the Cougar Conservancy. We are a resource here for the community. And if you need assistance to safeguard your pets or livestock, we have assistance programs for that. So reach out on our hotline, on our email, and let's get in touch.
Yeah, so definitely that's, thank you everybody for your presentations, because, clearly we need to really think about how we get organized, how we can educate our community. So on this meeting, there's the Meadows group has have organized themselves as the Canyon Crest Conservancy. And within that, they're working towards educating their residents. So I'm super excited to find out more about the Wildlife Watch program. And so I put in the chat January 26th, I think, is the ACONA meeting. So hopefully we can address it there. And if not, this shouldn't be a one and done conversation. We have amazing resources. California Fish and Wildlife are doing great things to also operate, in a coexisting way. And did we finish the story on the success of that. I think we flashed through it really quick, but the video series of saving the awareness from the community member realizing that the mountain lion was injured, and then they were able to then contact, was it you first, Karina, or?
Yeah, they contacted the Cougar Conservancy and we went out there and assessed the situation. And then CDFW was very quick to respond. But I do want to say that, yeah, you guys can check out those videos. It's a really great conservation story. But what I want to say to the other people who may not be happy that there is a mountain lion that, that was helped or whatever, we also care about your guys' feelings as well, and want to make sure that you all also feel heard and safe. And so again, just please reach out to us if you do need assistance with safeguarding pets or livestock, or just have general questions on ecology and behavior, what's normal, what's not normal, how, I saw a comment on the lion getting into somebody's fence. So we can talk about all of that. Please reach out.
Thank you. All right, Erin, I think we're going into our, oh, well, first of all, I want to recognize it's 7:02. So if anyone has to leave, first I want to thank you all for coming to our first ever Census Tract 460301 Zoom Wildlife and Census Tract 4602. So thanks to Hannah and Billy Malone and Nick Arnzen and our superhero Aaron Sheeta, who will be a champion forever. So I am hoping, because so thank you for coming, and we will have more. And so now I would like to just propose that we now have raise hand or any kind of questions, and then just maybe riff until 7:15, which is 12 minutes. How does everyone feel? Okay, speakers are happy. Erin, do we have any questions? And then anybody else that wants to bring things up? I have a question while we're organizing people. So we have packs of mama and cub bears. And so, because everyone thinks they're cute, I'm really scared that what could happen with their habitual behaviors. So I think we have two. So even how do we map our bears, how we are aware of it, and how we can educate our community as it relates to the bears. The mama, I think there's two sets, but I'm not even sure. So I don't know, Rebecca or?
So your question is that are there any specific recommendations for a bear and cubs?
Yeah, over the holidays, they're going to be dancing around because they've just, they're out in broad daylight now, walking around. So what should residents do?
The best thing that you can do is, again, what we've talked about tonight. Keep your attractants down. Keep your garbage concealed. Do not try and approach the bears to try and get a selfie. Respect the animals from a distance. They're going to be around in your neighborhoods, but don't try to engage with the animals in any way.
And when do you think they'll disappear, or do you think it's going to be? Should we set up a little land for them to hang out?
Yeah, it's really hard to say because, like I say, our bears really don't hibernate. But they should, once we start seeing some consistent cooler weather, they should start to lay down. They should start to retreat back away from the residential areas, and you'll see fewer and fewer incidences. Now, that doesn't mean that they've gone away forever. That's the time to really take note of any other attractants that you might be able to remove from your property, because once the spring comes up, they're hungry and they're going to be eating again.
Awesome. Okay, back to you, Erin.
All right, so let's see. I'm looking through all the comments. They're coming in quite quickly. Is there a risk of sharing these locations that impacts the safety of the animals? And what they're referring to is many Altadenans post locations of bear and mountain lion sightings with times and dates. So is there any risk of sharing these locations that impacts the safety of the animals by exposing them to poachers?
I guess, there's always that chance. That's part of the reason why we don't reveal real-time locations with our radio collared animals. I think also too, you don't know how many animals that you're dealing with. So you might see one bear on a regular basis, but there could actually be 3 or 4 bears in your neighborhood. So, you know, there's just that unknown factor that you should always be on your guard, and you should always be expecting to have a bear in your neighborhood.
Okay. The next question is, who do they call if hunters are shooting into the yards, say in between the houses, as seems to be something that happens annually?
Okay.
Aaron, excuse me for interrupting this, and excuse me, Rebecca, this is John. If you open the participants box, Aaron, you can see people who have raised their hands. So they can ask their questions directly, which is, I believe, what Dot had in mind.
I'm not seeing that. I'm sorry.
Okay, can you ask the question again? Because I've already forgotten it.
Sorry. They're asking about who do they call if hunters are in their property or around their property.
Okay, that would be our Cal tip line, and I can put that in the comments.
Okay.
We will figure out raised hands.
Yeah, I'm not finding that. Sorry, John.
Pamela Z had her hand raised. Oh, there we go in the chat now.
Okay. Can we let them just turn it off and ask their own if they prefer?
That'd be cool. Hear you guys.
Yeah.
Pamela?
Z, you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Hi, this is Pamela. So I live up in the Altadena area, up in near Loma Alta and Cheney Trail, and we've seen multiple cats. We've actually had 8 goats, a goose, and alpaca killed within a few days. We've seen that cat now. It actually came and got the second goat where we had lights on the property. We had loud noise. It showed no human fear. And that cat's been still seen in the area. And we've all been taking, you know, a tremendous amount of precaution now with our animals, pulling them into barns at night. But what do we do with something like this is one of my questions. Second is with Fish and Wildlife issuing tags in our zone. I mean, there's 5,500 tags that are issued a year in our zones. We now have this wildfire that's pushed animals out. You know, we've had Proposition 117 in 1990 that was passed to protect our cougars, which I'm all for. However, we're not protecting their food as well. We're not protecting their resources. So now they're looking to our dogs, they're looking to our cats, they're looking to our goats, they're looking to our alpacas. How do we work hand in hand to solve this problem when we have something that, you know, I just looked as of October 2020, the season's still available and people can still go and hunt into our areas. What do we do and how do we solve this problem? So both agencies can work together to provide natural resources to these cougars.
Right. Well, regarding the tag situation, again, that number of tags is spread between 3 zones. And the vast majority of hunters hunt in D13. They don't hunt in D11. Our deer population in D11 is stable to increasing. Back in the 80s, we saw a decline in the deer population, and that was due mostly to habitat. We had some burns that went through in the early 2000s that opened up a lot of great habitat for the deer, and they have been thriving. So it's not necessarily a problem with less prey for the mountain lions. It's a problem with more opportunities for the mountain lions in the urban areas. Regarding your question about what do you do with this mountain lion that seems to be persisting, my question to you is, when has the animal been seen, and has it just been seen on video, on home surveillance, or have people actually seen it? And if so, have people tried to haze the animal away from the property?
Yes, the cat was actually seen. It got stopped killing a second goat. So it killed one of the goats, early sunup, and then it came back at sundown. There were people around, and the cat was fearless, came in, and we tried to haze it, and it like locked eyes and moved slowly. So it really didn't show human fear, which is my concern. It's been seen on video early in the morning when people are sleeping, and then late at night when people are sleeping. It's caught on neighbors' Ring cameras. So, and I know it could be more than one cat. The small ranching community around us were very proactive on, we want to protect, obviously we don't want to kill the cougar. We'd like to see it push out of the area, but we're just kind of concerned because it's literally displaying like no human fear at this point.
Right. Well, again, mountain lions will, especially when they're on prey, or if they have prey in the area, they can be very intent on staying and keeping their prey. I mean, they've worked hard to get this animal, so they may not. When you have an animal on prey, you may not be able to haze it. So
Rebecca,
I think
can I jump in here as well on that note?
I'm sorry?
Can I jump in on that note
of
as
course,
well? I
yeah.
just wanted to make sure before you moved on. Pamela, I'm really sorry to hear that that's happened. And it sounds like you have, attempted to create an environment that's like not suitable for that lion to be there. But like Rebecca was saying, with having the, an animal that's there or remaining attractants, you mentioned deterrent devices like lights and sound. But those methods haven't been effective for preventing conflict with lions in this specific geographic area. And so that's why, we can talk offline about that as well, on what other measures we can take that are actually effective for preventing future incidents, because obviously, we don't want you to have any additional losses, but that attractant is still there because there's additional animals on the property. So go ahead, Rebecca. I just wanted to insert that in there while you were talking about the carcass being there and additional animals.
Right.
Thank you both. I really, really appreciate your feedback and your knowledge. I really do. Thank you.
Okay.
I think Rick is next. Rick, are you still there?
You will need to unmute, Rick.
Thank you. Just a question for the people at the Fish and Game. Is there any history on Bear 515 that seems to be our frequent flyer or frequent visitor up here with its two cubs?
515 was a no harm, no foul animal, that first category animal that wandered into an adjacent city. I believe it was in 2016, if I'm correct. And we had moved her to suitable bear habitat far away from the city. And of course, she came back, as we always know that they do. And when she came back, she had two cubs with her. And since then, she's been in the same general area, spending a little bit more time in Altadena than in the other city. But yeah, that's kind of the history of 515.
How old is she? Do you know?
Oh gosh, you know what? I wouldn't even want to guess. I wasn't on scene, so I don't recall the paperwork, but she was fully grown when she was captured in 2016. So at least 5.
Wow, impressive. Is that cleared up for you, Rick?
We've got Suzanne next.
Yep, Suzanne's next. Thank you.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. First of all, thank you so much. It's been a great and informative evening. My question is one of convenience, which is, as a mountain lion, if one had to either hunt for a deer or had food available in the form of however well enclosed not domesticated, but animals that were kept in a little farm setting, would that be naturally more attractive to a mountain lion and an easier get, if you will, than it being forced to hunt in the wild? And could that possibly be a problem by actually luring mountain lions if they have easy food, quote unquote? That's the end of my question. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen, oh, I just lost my train of thought.
I can hop in here for a second, Rebecca. You know, I think that's a great question, and we get that a lot from community members. And, you know, when you look at the National Park Service study just west of you guys, they've been studying mountain lions for so long, almost 20 years now. And their studies on diet show, despite lions, you know, living along this wild and urban interface, they show that mountain lions do prefer, despite having access to these, you know, easy prey items like domestic animals and livestock, they prefer their deer, and then, you know, after that, like mesopredators like coyotes and stuff like that. But they do prefer deer, despite them having, you know, these attractants on the landscape.
Thank you for mentioning that, Karina. That's exactly the point that I was going to make. Yeah, they found when they've done taken a look at their diet that they're actually feeding on deer even in the urban interface.
Awesome. Okay, it's 7:18. Maybe we have one question.
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this point.
Max, what did Max say? I have a question. I guess we can address this all again. We can't let this momentum go away so that we can really work towards solutions. But what was going to be my question?
We're all tired.
I know. So I'm going to save it for 2021. Anybody else? Anybody else?
There was one question in chat that I don't believe that we answered, which is, we got the instructions on how to back up safely from a bear. How do you back up safely from a cougar or lion?
Same thing. Same approach. You want to, you know, keep your eyes on the animal. You want to make yourself bigger. You want to step back until you can get to an area of safety.
Did Sean have a question? I saw Sean Mastretti raise his physical hand.
I was just going to ask that same question. What do I do if we come in contact? So thank you very much. And we came in late, so I apologize. Lee and I are here. But who are the best person or group to call if we see something?
Call the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I have the number in the chat.
Thank you.
You'll probably end up getting me.
Anybody else? 1 minute. Okay, I think that's it, Aaron. That's it. So I want to thank everybody for spending an hour and 20 minutes with us talking about what we love a lot here in Altadena, wildlife. And so I think it's an exciting time again to move forward and to start working on just nurturing our coexistence, right? And anyway, that's all I have to say. Anybody else want to say anything?
Well, just thank you again to the audience for showing up. I mean, so much of the time we put effort into these presentations and nobody shows up. And boy, this community is really, really on the ball. And if anyone's going to have success with the Wildlife Watch program, I think it's going to be Altadena.
Yeah, this is Kent Smurl. I'm a program analyst for the Southern California Wildlife Watch program. I just want to say that I'm very enthused in seeing this meeting. Wildlife Watch is designed to create collaborative efforts for all levels of government and community meetings and that. So Karina is part of our board for the city of Altadena to come on, and we encourage
Pasadena Media's YouTube channel. And then let's keep the conversation going. Again, we're all here for you, Hannah, wherever she went, and your council members. Thanks for all of the amazing faces here that make Altadena who you are. I'm going to start crying, but because you're all superstars. So thank you very much, Erin.
Great presentation.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.